Alrighty, guys. So I'm going to run you through here a little bit, give you a little history on Marshall Reddick here. At Marshall Reddick, we pride ourselves on being what we consider a one-stop shop for all things real estate and investments. What that means is that in a traditional real estate brokerage, you would have an agent who helps you buy or sell a property, escrow closes, and maybe you talk to them like 5 or 10 years later if you want to sell or repurchase another property. For us, we say that our relationship truly starts when escrow closes, and that's really where we get to start building for our investors, for our clients. Part of that leads into our property management side. Our property management makes up about 50% of the business that Marshall Reddick does, and we work extremely closely hand in hand between our real estate brokerage and property management. This is property management in very landlord-friendly, owner-friendly, investor-friendly properties that have been heavily critiqued by Scott himself here and the rest of our team. The other side of that, beyond those two, is that we do private money lending. The thing with private money is that there are separate qualifications than a conventional loan. What we see there is generally for quick flip loans, fix and flip loans, things that you can't qualify for in a conventional loan, you would need a private money lender for. So we do that. We also have a mortgage fund that is now up to what, like 36 million?
Close to 40, I think.
Yeah, $36 million. You have to be an accredited investor there. That pays out quarterly. And so really, truly, it's the kind of program where you could come in, purchase a property, get in with property management, and then let your portfolio grow and build, and we can help maintain and further those assets as your real estate career and investment career continues to grow. A little bit about me. My name is Ashley Robertson. I originally grew up in a very small mountain town in Mammoth Lakes, world-class skiing and snowboarding, if anybody is into that. I've been in real estate for coming up on about 4 years now. Third generation realtor. My grandfather, my dad, both operated in that as well. Obviously, you see that on the screen there. I am a mama of 2 wild and crazy boys who just wreak havoc all over Orange County, wherever they can. But tonight I will be operating as your advisor. And it's a really, really cool role. It's a totally complementary role that we offer as one of our services within Marshall Reddick. Basically what we could do, we would get on a phone call, we would look at your individual situation, and then figure out which market, what type of investment, and what plan would help be the best method, the best roadmap to get you to your financial and real estate investment goals. My contact information is there, and it will come up again if you guys need it, but it's a pretty incredible experience where I get to look at all the different markets we operate in. I get to be very involved and then help make sure that you're connected with every person within the company to help you reach those goals. So we kind of work as a full-on team here, and it's complementary, which is really, really cool. So our leader this evening is Mr. Scott Pastel. He is one of the owners of our company. He runs the property management department, and as we can see here, 17 years experience at Marshall Reddick. Scott started as an intern and is now just basically keeping us all paid and keeping everybody going. So his beautiful wife Ashley is here on the screen, and absolutely adorable son Preston. He is just about the cutest thing I've ever seen. So at this point, I will let Scott open up and teach you all a little bit more about what it looks like to invest in 2022.
Thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate the introduction, Ashley, and I'm glad that you folks on our webinar tonight got to meet Ashley. Thank you for going over our services and kind of setting the precedence a little bit more for this presentation. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. I hope wherever you are, you have some really good working air conditioning and a cold beverage next to you. Here in Southern California, where I'm sitting with Ashley, which has been our office headquarters for going on about 30 years now, is going through what we're all very well aware of as a heat wave and trying to conserve. So I don't think we have any air conditioning on where we're at right now, but we've got kind of a shade room and trying to conserve some energy. We appreciate you guys being on. So I'm really looking forward to going through, how to buy investment property in 2022, explaining all the services that Marsh Reddick brings, and just basically giving you guys as much advice as we can in the next hour, and giving you a lot of resources, links, some follow-up where you can get a lot more information after this webinar. And then best of all, having the opportunity to connect with Ashley for a one-on-one conversation over the phone. We also use video, Ring Central. If you're in Southern California and you would like to meet in person, we can certainly do that. We have a lot of investors that like to come in and meet us here as well too. So thanks, Ashley, for going over my background. I do have several investment properties, but like you mentioned, these are my best investments, my family. Yeah. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's definitely true. And I'm sure those of us on the webinar, could attest to that. So I got started 17 years ago. I'm heavily in the property management department, but I've been speaking at seminars and webinars for Marsh Reddick for about 12 or 13 years now. And I'm looking forward to you guys getting just a better understanding of our philosophies, our teachings, our education, advice, and resources. Many of us here at Marsh Reddick do own investment properties. I never would have bought investment properties in my mid-20s had I not worked for a company like this that just introduced me to all the resources and education and teams and properties that fit my portfolio. So advisors like Ashley every single day are having these conversations, and many of them could be ongoing conversations, one after another, to help lead you guys closer towards the best investment that fits your unique criteria and goals. So let's get into the presentation. This is an outline of what we're going to cover here the next hour. We're going to start by going over how to set your individual investment criteria. Very, very important that you spend time on this process. This is also something that Ashley and our advisors do provide a lot of insight. And it's going to be based on your experience in real estate, your goals, your risk tolerance, your time frame, and ultimately what options we can make available to you. Marsh Reddick, like many of you know, we're located in 5 different states across the country, from California to Florida, and then Texas, Tennessee, and Kentucky in between. We'll be going over those markets. I'll show you exactly where we have offices, where some of our properties that we manage are located. And I'm going to show some examples of investment properties that you can find on our website. And I'll go over, how we screen these properties, where we find them, and why we suggest these types of properties. So that's going to also go into some of the due diligence. I'll be talking about how we chose these 5 states to set up our offices and build a team and hire staff and essentially create a large presence in some of these markets. So I'll explain why we're in those markets. I'm also going to go over the type of due diligence you should do when working with a realtor, property manager, mortgage lender. Marsh Reddick does have the entire team. So many of you might know already that we do have very specific partnerships with insurance agents and mortgage lenders, and we have very carefully chosen these relationships years ago. So we get to bring these resources to you and basically provide an entire team approach that's helped not just thousands, but tens of thousands of investors. I'm going to go over some of the calculations and formulas to determine just basic cash flow, cash on cash return. We might be able to touch on return on investment a little bit more, but just some of the basic calculations that you'll find on our website when you're looking at these financial pro formas for properties. So we'll also be going over various options that are available for people to purchase real estate, specifically investment real estate. Not every option might be available to every investor. So we're going to kind of cover some of these options, go over a little bit more on the conventional financing that we have. Ashley also touched on our private financing that Marsh Reddick does in-house. That's purely asset-based, no credit, no income qualification needed. So basically, I think we have options for everybody. It's just which option method of purchase fits you best. And then we're going to go over property management. I'll explain this giant machine that Marsh Reddick has in 5 states that manages currently 2,300 doors, and how we do property management, how we do that differently. And then lastly, I'll also be going over these cities and states that we have properties located in. So where do we begin as an investor? Whether you are about to acquire your very first property, or whether you maybe owned real estate for 20 or 30 years and it's just been maybe a few years or longer than a few years, since you've gone through the acquisition process. Not only that, maybe you've bought property in the recent years, but you just don't have the tools and knowledge that we provide here at Marshall Reddick. So this is Marshall Reddick's investment methodology. It starts left, it goes clockwise all the way from why to who. This is the step-by-step process that we help every single person walk through before we help them write a contract on a property. We do this with new investors. We do this with experienced investors. It's very important for us to know why you're investing in real estate, how you're going to invest in real estate, when you're going to do it, what you're going to be buying, where you're going to be buying it, and who you're going to be working with. But this is a very specific order. It goes from left to right in that very specific why, how, when, what, where, and who. And as just like a really high level overview summary, this is the process that we help every single person walk through. Every single individual is going to have slightly different or largely different goals. Everybody's going to have different options available to them. It's important that we help you figure out what time frame makes sense for you to acquire your first or next property. And where we spend a lot of time with our clients is helping them set their criteria, which I'm actually going to get to right after this slide. Marshall Reddick has chosen 5 different states that have A to Z variety in everything. We're in high cash flow markets. We're in high appreciating markets. We're in high affordability markets. We're in low affordability markets. We have properties that are new construction. We have properties that are 100 years old. So we have single family, multifamily. So really, we have every kind of property imaginable. We can help you acquire any kind of property imaginable, but we're going to get to know you and we're going to give you very specific feedback on the types of properties that we feel are best, and we're going to explain exactly why. We're very consultative here at Marshall Reddick. Anybody that's worked with an advisor before knows how much of that consultative approach goes into what we do here at Marshall Reddick. And lastly, we're going to connect you with the right agents in the right markets, with our property management staff, with our lenders and conventional, or maybe you're doing a 1031 exchange or using a self-directed retirement account. So no matter what direction and where we go with you, we're going to be able to help you accomplish your goals as long as it's possible and as long as it fits your strategy best. Here's some criteria that we can use to look at a property. And let's just say we're looking at properties on Realtor.com or Redfin or Zillow, and there's gonna be a lot of facts and figures. They're gonna provide us with specs on that property, with property details, right? We're gonna know the age of a property. We're gonna know what price the property is listed for sale, if it is for sale. We're gonna know how many units it has, the bed and bath per unit. We're gonna probably have some detail just by looking at the pictures or getting a little bit more insight on the condition of the property. And then we can also evaluate properties based on, the single story, 2-story, the lot size, and what, if there's a pool on the property or no pool. There's so many details that we can use to go into this model property, this perfect model property. But where we start with investors is property class. And if you see on my screen that second arrow, that's criteria that you don't see on Zillow, you don't see on Redfin, you don't see on Realtor.com. There is no perfect type of process necessarily that fits for everybody. Every investor's goals and options and risk tolerance is going to point them to a different property class. So we're going to go over setting property class, and I think it's extremely important that you guys understand what our property class is. How do you figure out a property class? What does it mean if you have an A-class property versus a C-class property? So I'm going to start by letting you know that every property in every city and every state has a property class. The property class is based on the median home price in that metropolitan market. That data is data that we get, we being licensed brokers, we get that from the National Association of Realtors. Now, let's actually just now move towards the scale at the bottom of this slide. So every property in every city and every state has a property class. Every major metropolitan market has a combination of luxury A, B, C, and D class properties. The price of a property in one market might make it an A class. That price in a different market might make it a D class. So the basis of property class is the median home price in that specific metropolitan market. Now, if we look at the scale, we see that to the left are higher purchase prices, to the right, lower purchase prices. Now, it's a sliding scale. So with that comes higher tenant quality on the left, lower tenant quality on the right. Further we get to the left in higher property classes, the more we make in appreciation. Further to the right, the less we make in appreciation, and we trade that off for more cash flow and less appreciation as we go down in property class. Now, at face value, none of these are better or worse than the other. It's which one is better or worse for you and your investment DNA, your investment criteria, so to speak. So how you determine which property classes work for you are sort of based on the questions on this slide here. And they're very similar questions that a financial advisor would ask you. How old are you? When are you looking to retire? Do you have any dependents? What is your annual income? What's your experience with different investments? A financial advisor, they're not going to just tell you what you should invest in without you answering a list of, maybe 20 or 30 questions. That's going to be standard with any financial advisory firm. The process for investing in real estate, it's actually the same. I just think that we're maybe the only ones that teach that. That cash flow might not make sense for everybody, but it might make sense for some investors. That appreciation might make sense for some investors, but not others. So these are questions that our real estate advisors will ask you to help you determine which property class makes the most sense for you. Now, we make this a little easier. Luxury class is not the type of property you should purchase as an investment. It's the type of property you should purchase as your primary residence when you've reached that point in life where you're able to buy your dream home. These homes don't make sense as an investment when you look at the acquisition. Sure, if you bought a property 10 years ago, or I guess in this market, like 4 years ago, maybe that property now makes sense as an investment. But when we're looking at acquiring properties, luxury class properties do not make sense on paper. In order to break even on the rent, we're looking at a significant down payment of 50 to well above 50%. We're not going to see that income. We're going to see that negative cash flow. Even if we do buy a luxury property cash, the income versus the purchase price is going to be significantly low. So we don't buy luxury properties as investments. Now on the right, same thing. We don't purchase D-class properties either. And those properties are money pits. They're money losses. They're properties that are very difficult to qualify any renter off of income and credit. These properties are located in very high crime areas, in areas that would be mostly tenant occupied, areas and types of properties that we don't see long-term rent. We don't see families staying. We do see much higher maintenance and much higher vacancy. Now the neighborhoods, so we can just kind of cut those off at the ends. So it only makes sense to buy an A, B, or C class property as an investment. The types of properties we see in A-class neighborhoods are, the types of neighborhoods we see for A-class properties are going to be neighborhoods that are mostly owner-occupied, lower percentage of renters. C-class as well as D-class, those neighborhoods are going to be almost entirely rental-occupied, very, very low percentage of owners, very little purchases, very little appreciation for home prices. So it's kind of a trade-off, right? Let's go a little bit further, talk more about how to figure out property class. So Marshall Reddick has the median home prices of every major metropolitan market in the US. This is data that is provided by the National Association of Realtors. SFR stands for single family residence. Per unit would be if we're looking at a multifamily property. The median home prices are based on MSA, means metropolitan statistical area, basically metropolitan, right? San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, Tampa, Florida, Detroit. Every major city is considered an MSA, and that median home price data is based on single family residences. So if we own a single family or we're looking at purchasing a single family, any property that's valued at about 50% or less of the median is a D class. Any property that's valued at half up to 80% is C class. 80% up to the median home price is B class. Median home price up to 1.3 times the median is A. And then any property that has a value of over 1.3 times the median is considered luxury class. Now we adjust those numbers on a multi-unit property because the data is based on a single-family detached home. So if you haven't already read the Reddick Rating ebook, we highly recommend that you go on our website and download this 40-page, very educational white paper document called our Reddick Property Rating ebook. We actually published this 7 years ago. It's completely timeless. We've had to make 0 updates to it in the last 7 years. And we're pretty much guaranteeing we'll have to make 0 updates in the next 7 years. It's not based on interest rates. It's not based on specific values. It's based on the relation to the current median home price, which we all know that changes over time, and the value of the property that you own or you're planning to acquire, which we know that changes. Thankfully, the graph, the scale does not change. So when you're looking at the ebook, if you download the digital version, you'll come across this page here, and you're actually able to click on that map. Our ebook is hyperlinked all over with dozens of links to take you to the source of the information. So this is actually a screenshot of Realtor.org, otherwise known as the National Association of Realtors. They've been tracking median home prices in every major market for the last about 27 years. This is extremely valuable data that we share on our website. By going on the ebook and clicking on this screenshot, we can see the median home prices in every major market. So now let's talk about tenant quality. Let's talk about how this affects the return on investment of an A-class, B-class, or C-class property. So I mentioned earlier that Marsh Reddick currently manages 2,300 properties. Years ago, when we wrote this ebook, we sampled and reviewed about, think about it as around 1,700 applications that we had in our system at the time. And we found very, very similar trends in the demographics of renters. Didn't matter what state it was, didn't matter what city it was, and all of it was an exact result based on property class. And these are properties in different cities and different states. So what we see in higher property classes, and let's look at A-class tenants for a second. Again, we have thousands of applications. We know what our applicants do for work. We know what they make. We know how long they've been at their employment. We know if they're married. We know where they live. We know how long they live there, how much they're paying in rent. We know their social security number. We know more about these strangers that are applicants than probably some of the closest people in their life. They have to divulge a lot of information on our applications. So we have a lot more applications than renters, obviously, because we sometimes get multiple applications. So we were able to see a very, very common trend. And what we basically saw in A-class properties were tenants that were more white-collar working-class professionals that had higher levels of education, that were with their employer longer in general, and in many cases had dual income, had other sources of income, whether that was a spouse or just multiple streams of income. Exactly. B-class tenants are like median salary wage, median income earners in that respective market, really ranging all over the board. I mean, they could be young adults. I mean, they can be, in the close to or at the senior age. It's just really individuals that make the median salary for that specific market. And that could be blue collar, white collar. We might not see the specialization in career that we see with A-class, but those that are right around that median income level. C-class is typically going to be blue collar employment, hourly wage, not seeing usually the job stability or the multiple streams of income that we would see with higher property classes. D-class, if you've ever heard of Section 8 or tenants that are below the poverty line, in some cases on some type of government assistance. Okay, let's go down the infographic a little bit. So things that matter in terms of influencing property class: the price, the cost per square foot, the school districts, and the crime rate. That heavily influences property class. Interestingly enough, what doesn't influence property class very much are the aesthetics, the age of a property, the size and square footage of a property, the condition of a property, the type of property, doesn't really make it a specific property class. And we see property classes all over the board with different levels of aesthetics and condition and age and square footage. So what really goes into this is the demand. And if you look at the price point and the cost per square foot, that's based on the demand for buyers buying real estate in that specific neighborhood or city or area. Less demand for buyers typically will relate to less appreciation in value. In these neighborhoods, because we are seeing a much higher percentage of renters in our C and D class properties, that essentially, creates that like kind of more flat performance over time. If we have more people and more demand for buying in a specific neighborhood, essentially, that could influence the property class into a much higher range. So to help you remember the differences between property classes, at the very bottom, we very easily coined A class stands for appreciation, B class stands for both, C class stands for a combination, C class obviously stands for cash flow. So this is why it matters, right? I like talking, hypotheticals and scenarios, but at the end of the day, what really, really matters is the financial return that we can expect. And to start with that, it's important that investors understand that you do not have the same amounts of maintenance and vacancy based on property classes. Not every property in a gigantic metropolitan market of millions of people will see the same amount of appreciation, right? We could have two homes in two completely different parts of a metropolitan market where one is a D class, one is a luxury or A class, and they perform extremely differently. And they might be like 10 or 15 miles apart, if that. And here we are in SoCal, so we always use Los Angeles as an easy example for that. Properties could be very close to one another and could be completely different in terms of the classification, crime rates, price points, demand. So I'd like you guys to pay close attention to the percentages of maintenance and vacancy that we've found to be true in different property classes. And it's going to be truer and truer the longer you hold a property. If you look at a property performance on a 1-year basis, you're looking at it incorrectly. You have to evaluate a real estate investment on at least a 10 to 15 year horizon. Now, most investors hold their properties for 10 to 15 years, but that is essentially real estate investing 101. Real estate investing is a long-term investment. If you're flipping a property, that's different. We're talking about buy and hold. So that is a long-term investment. We will see different tenants in that property over time. We'll see rents hopefully continue going up over time. We might even see neighborhoods and locations changing and gentrifying and transitioning over time. We cannot look at a property on a 1-year or 2-year basis and say that it was a good investment or not a good investment. There are not enough factors involved in holding a property for a year or two to help you determine whether it was or wasn't a good investment. So when we're looking at property classes, these are percentages of the monthly rent. So let's just take an easy example and say that a property rents for $2,000 a month. If we're using 8% as a factor, we're basically going to be setting aside $160 a month for maintenance and $160 a month for vacancy. Now, a lot of people say that's pretty conservative, and we get a lot of feedback that that's aggressively conservative. That's okay, and we have to be able to provide very predictable, very realistic, and very achievable returns to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people a year. This year alone, we're going to be looking at right around 1,000 closings in all of our markets. We would like 100% of our performance to be accurate, and that's kind of what Marshall Reddick has been able to achieve for years and years and years. So maintenance and vacancy are not necessarily an expense you'll have every month. They're not an expense that we can predict with a crystal ball. We can evaluate hundreds and hundreds of properties in all of our markets over years and years and come up with a very similar trend. So it doesn't matter what Google says the vacancy rate is in San Antonio. It doesn't matter what Google says the vacancy rate is in Tampa, Florida. It doesn't matter what Google says the vacancy rate is in Los Angeles. That is not going to apply to your one property out of hundreds of thousands of properties in that specific market. Property class is what's going to help you figure out how much vacancy and maintenance you're going to have. So we use the top one for residential 1 to 4 unit in 5+ units that are considered apartments. We do see more turnover and typically more maintenance. So we've assigned higher amounts of maintenance for apartments. So you can take a percentage for vacancy and do a fun example and take either 8, 10, or 13%, multiply it by 365, and that's how many days each year you're setting aside for a vacancy. Now, we might have, and hopefully if we're buying a 3 or 4 bedroom single family detached home, if you're doing it with Marshall Reddick, we're going to place a family. We're going to hopefully have a long-term tenant that stays for, at least 3 to 5 years or longer. Again, you're going to own this property. Historically, you're going to own this property for about 10 to 15 years. You might have 4, 5, 6, 7 different renters in that property for however long you own it. The longer you have a tenant in the property, the more work that's needed during that next turnover cycle. So, right, we have a tenant stay for 8 years, and we're probably going to have to redo paint and flooring and maybe update some appliances and some other things. So that's going to be a longer vacancy with more maintenance involved. So long tenancies are great. Low vacancy is fantastic. But when that tenant eventually moves out, it's time for more work to be involved and probably longer vacancy. So these are very safe, very conservative percentages to use. What we recommend in a practical sense is to just basically set aside this money. Maybe you open a separate bank account just for your real estate investments, and you have the rent direct deposited right in there by Marshall Reddick, and you have your mortgage payments paid out automatically on auto pay from that account, and you don't commingle it with any of your other income or expenses. It's very easy to track the performance of that property if you set it up that way. But, on top of that, if you're, evaluating performance, then we know the longer that tenant's in that property, the longer, the more work to be involved afterwards. On top of that, if you're evaluating properties and you're setting up a separate bank account, it just becomes much, much easier to track that. So budget for those vacancies, budget for those maintenance, but that's not necessarily going to be an expense you have every month. So highly recommend, if you haven't already read it, that you go to marshreddick.com/ebook to download our property rating ebook. Ashley and all of our advisors always recommend that. So you guys have a better understanding for some of the teaching, some of the philosophies, and some of the resources that we make available. So I hope you guys have a chance to read through that in more detail after the presentation. Let's get into where it makes sense to invest in real estate and why. So Marshall Reddick's been in business for many years. Really, the model that we have now got started in the early 90s, helping investors purchase properties in various locations in the country, and sourcing property management and real estate agents to make that possible. In 2014, Marshall Reddick, the person, retired, and we restructured the company. So we now do real estate sales in-house with our agents, and we now provide property management in-house as well. So the locations that we've chosen have been largely based off of which states are considered business friendly / landlord friendly, and which states and cities are considered more tenant friendly and not as business friendly. And these tenant friendly and landlord friendly laws are very similar to the same environment that creates a business friendly or not a business friendly environment. So taxes, affordability, diversity of employment, go into heavily which markets are business friendly or landlord friendly. And then the laws. So in our markets of Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, all three of those states have no income tax. The tenant laws are pretty different than where our headquarters is here in California. We don't have rent control in these cities. We have a longer period of time to refund security deposits. We can increase rents as much as we want with enough advance notice. And I can go on and on and on, but that's part of the reason why we've chosen some of these markets. And then the rental demand. So we're only in major metropolitan markets like Austin, San Antonio, Nashville, Cape Coral. These are all major metropolitan markets that have a strong diversity of employment in many different industries, that have a very high rate of job hires and a very low unemployment rate, because that heavily goes into rental demand and how many potential applicants we have available to rent your property. We're also in markets that have very high affordability. So what I mean by that is all of the markets, to give that that caveat, excluding California, but all of our markets in Texas, Tennessee, and Florida have a lower than national average median home price. So a median home price nationally is sitting right around 400. I think it's in the low 400s. Median home prices in our markets are typically between about maybe like 300 to 350,000. Actually, Clarksville, Tennessee, which is our lowest price market, our highest affordability market, median home prices are in like the 200,000s. So most of the homes, the single family homes we sell on average are between about 250 to like 350 or 400,000. The rents in these markets make it possible to have that positive cash flow with a minimum of about 25% down. If you can do 30% down, we usually, recommend that as well to create higher cash flow. But these are very high affordability markets. They're all major metropolitan markets that have universities and colleges that attract students that enter the future workforce. And then, it doesn't make sense to buy in any market, no matter where it is, if you don't have reliable property management. So we have our in-house markets and we have our referral markets, which we call our third-party markets. So if you're looking at the screen right now, you can see the 16 markets that Marsh Reddick covers, and the 11 markets that we do this in-house with Marshall Reddick, sign on the building, Marsh Reddick Property Management, Marsh Reddick Leasing, Marsh Reddick as the agent helping our clients through the process. We have a handful of third-party markets, Phoenix, Boise, Indianapolis, Memphis, and Dallas. These are markets that Marsh Reddick does not have property management or real estate agents located in-house. However, we do have referrals for clients that are looking to buy or sell in those markets. Now, when we look at our in-house markets of Southern California, Northern Tennessee, Southwest Florida, and Central Texas, these are markets that Marsh Reddick does everything soup to nuts in-house. And, we were founded in California. A lot of our clients live in California. We also help with primary residences. We're not exclusively an investment brokerage. It just so happens that about 70 to 80% of our sales are non-owner occupied investment properties, because that's heavily where our real estate knowledge and resources are located. However, we're constantly helping people buy and sell their primary residence within any of these markets as well. Ashley's done and is actually pretty familiar with 1031 exchanges, as all our real estate advisors are. So helping somebody exchange a property in a high appreciating market and replace it with, a whole portfolio of properties in our affordability markets is something that we're doing all the time. We might trade an older property with, a renter that could be below market rent and a property that is not seeing a very high return for a whole portfolio of properties that are brand new or newer construction that produce, 3-4 times as much income as that one property in that could be coastal or high appreciating market. So I'll go over these markets a little bit more. You can see all of them on our website. There's properties in all of our markets. We have recorded webinars in all of these locations. We have market data packets, so a lot of education for you to understand why these markets are some of the best places in the country to invest in. So We only sell and manage properties in a major metropolitan market. So if you're looking at a property that's, say, an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of a major metro, that might not fit our criteria. And here's why we stick to major metropolitan markets. First and foremost, we have a much larger tenant base, and we want that. We don't want to exclude or restrict, the majority of the rental market from renting our home. So, again, going back to investment properties, right? Maybe that, property classes, and speaking in terms of luxury class properties, a much smaller percentage of renters are looking at luxury class properties. So there we go, right? The majority of renters are looking for A, B, or C class properties. We only rent on 12-month leases, long-term tenants, unfurnished properties that the tenants bring all their own furniture and they're responsible for all their own furniture. We even require our renters to carry renter's insurance to insure their personal belongings. But we know right off the bat we're going to get a larger tenant base in a major metropolitan market. That's going to be fueled by much more diverse employment in many, many different industries. What a larger market also provides is more selection of professional property management. I don't hide the fact that there's a lot of property managers in our markets, and we're very proud of the way that Marsh Riddick operates our property management. But essentially, if you're buying a property way out in what's the saying? Way out in the sticks. If you're buying a property way out in the sticks where there's a much smaller population, let's say 5,000, 10,000 people, there might only be one or two property managers in that town, and you're stuck with them, whether you like them or not. So, like where Ashley's from in Mammoth Lakes, California, good example. Major metropolitan markets also experience higher population growth and more appreciation and value, generally speaking, than smaller tertiary markets that are not considered major metropolitans. Okay, I love sharing this. These are some screenshots this is right out of our property management software, Appfolio. I took some screenshots of our map of properties under management in San Antonio, and I also did it for Austin. And we have no problem sharing these maps. We like doing that so investors can see our coverage in these markets and exactly where and what we manage. So if you're looking at San Antonio for a second, you kind of notice that there's an entire half circle of San Antonio that you see almost no properties. Now the 10 freeway cuts right through the middle of San Antonio. And in San Antonio, we manage about 600 doors. 99% of them are north of the 10 freeway. Now, I could go on, and our advisors and agents can happily explain to you why we're in some of these neighborhoods, why we're not in other parts of town. We're very specific to the zip codes and even the neighborhoods and communities that we recommend in all of our markets. But the bottom line says it right there at the top. We are helping investors buy and managing properties in suburbs of major metropolitan markets. We are not selling or managing a very high percentage of inner city properties, gentrified neighborhoods, or value add situations. We like the lowest risk with the highest return possible. So most of these properties you're seeing are in newer communities, are in family-oriented communities. Many are in subdivisions. Many of these properties you're seeing on the screen, I would say probably about 85 or 90% of them or more are built in the last maybe like 10 to 20 years at most. So these are communities that families are drawn to. These are low crime areas, high school district ratings, where we're seeing more demand from renters, and essentially just properties that have low maintenance, low vacancy, and attract good quality renters. We're going to find that in the suburbs. So in Austin, most of our properties are in North Austin, which is Round Rock, Pflugerville, Georgetown, Leander, or in South Austin, Kyle, Buda. Again, same thing. You don't see a lot of properties in that gigantic span of the city of Austin. You see them more in Austin proper, north and south. That's our strategy. A lot of these renters that used to commute into downtown, maybe now working from home, but these are the communities, these are the desirable areas, these are the higher quality of life, maybe higher affordability, that we see more demand from the exact type of tenants that we're looking for. And the exact type of tenants we're looking for are the F word. That means families. Families is the word I was referring to. That's the type of tenant we want. Now, we have the exact same standard of criteria for passing our applications, no matter the property. Very specific requirements for credit, income, rental history, employment verifications, pet policies. We have income requirements. So there's a lot of and of course criminal background checks. A lot of criteria goes into it, but we're not doing this to try to create some niche type of property. We're not trying to rent to only this type of people, or only, what I mean by that is more like, we're not looking to rent to just students or only active military or only people that are like in a special segment.
Yeah.
We're looking to open our properties up to the majority of the rental market that pass all of our qualifications and essentially take good care of our properties and stay longer. That is the family. That is the type of tenant we see. That's the best quality. And we have to have the right property in the right area to attract that desirable family. Families are much more likelier to rent a 3 to 4 bedroom, 2 to 3 bath, 2-car garage, detached single family home, or a multi-unit that has 3 beds and at least 2 baths in each unit, which we have plenty of those in our Texas, Florida, and Tennessee markets. Those are tenants that take better care of the property, that have more job stability, that have in some, higher credit, and in some cases may have maybe even owned property in the past, which we do see with some A-class tenants, which sometimes brings a tenant that has a better ability to take care of that property, replace air filters, or put hair catchers in drains. That's something we'll see with those A-class tenants in many cases, because in many cases they've owned property in the past. So this is the process we follow, why we're in the suburbs, because we get these newer properties with lower crime rates and better school districts that attract that desirable family tenant.
There's a note in the Reddick property rating ebook that says it's much easier to rehabilitate a home than a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sums up what you said very, very well.
Absolutely, thank you. And speculation is not really something that we're big on here at Marshall Reddick. We like to follow the trends, follow the market, follow what works. Low risk and the highest return we can get. So as I mentioned earlier, you can download a market data packet on any of our markets. They're very up to date. So they've all been updated in the last like 2 or 3 months. So they're very, very current, all 2022 or most recent data. So you can go to marshallreddick.com/market data and download a market data packet in any of our markets. Our advisors like Ashley usually share these, or they'll go over them with you, but they're not very long. They're maybe 20, 25 pages, full of a lot of good information on major employers, major attractions, historical appreciation trends, median home price, median rent amounts, just a lot of good data. I hope you guys get a chance to browse those during or after the presentation tonight. So now we're kind of getting into how you are going to acquire real estate, and it's different for every single client. This isn't one size fits all. Every single client and every scenario is very different, but we're probably going to start by looking at conventional financing to see if that's something you can qualify for. Conventional financing offers the lowest down payments and the lowest interest rates, the most desirable financing. And most of our investors, as I mentioned, are putting anywhere from like 20 to 30% down. I think 25 or 30% down on average. With rates going up, I think we're also trying to reduce the interest rates and create the best cash flow environment, but also utilizing leverage correctly. So we do have an incredible team that we work with. CMG Mortgage is a conventional lender that Marshall Reddick has worked with for many years. In fact, we've worked with the same conventional lender and loan officer, Reed Hazard, for 17 years now. Reed's an investor himself, as are most of the partners in a lot of our categories. Our insurance agents, and we've kind of turned everybody we work with into an investor, whether they started that way or whether we just converted them to an investor over time. Reed has 5 rental properties now. He's our conventional lender. So we're going to look at that as an option. We may also look at the possibility of a home equity line of credit or a cash out refinance. Whether you own a home right now, your primary residence, if you have enough equity, or if you own investment properties that have enough equity, we'll also look at that as a potential option to refinance or draw a second lien, a line of credit, to see if that is a good way for you to utilize leverage to purchase investment property. We also have private financing in-house. The terms and the rates are on our website. Those of you that are purchasing as an entity, so not in your personal name, if you're buying properties within your retirement account or with an LLC or some type of entity, you will not be able to get conventional financing. So private financing would be the only option to use leverage. And individuals can use private financing too, if it makes sense. If you're just saying maybe you're writing off a lot of your expenses, not showing enough income to qualify, you can use private financing. You can refinance in the future into conventional if that's what is best for you. We also help investors tap into their retirement accounts to self-direct that into a vehicle that you can purchase investment properties or even lend money. Certainly, if you're in the market to purchase cash, if you have that option, we're certainly going to tell you whether we think it's the best use of your money or not, but that's an option. 1031 exchanges, selling investment properties and trading for one or more properties, is something that we have done thousands of times. And I don't think there's been a week in this entire year that we haven't been performing at least one or more exchanges at once. We have an amazing 1031 accommodator. So different options that Ashley and our advisors will go over with you to help you figure out which options you have available and which options make the most sense for you. If you're a numbers person, you're really going to like working with Marshall Reddick. You're really going to like the pro formas on our website that have the calculations for cap rate, return on investment, cash and cash return. I think one of the coolest things about our website is that you're able to adjust all the numbers, the down payment, how long you hold the property, the interest rates. You can adjust the rent amount. You can adjust purchase prices. Everything on our website has built-in calculators. There's a mortgage amortization calculator built into it. There's even cool little tools like graphs and charts that you can look at. I think you can probably get more education just by spending time on our financial calculators than you could probably get, in just about any other place of the internet. So we're going to talk about cash on cash return and return on investment here. If you are a cash flow driven investor, cash on cash return is going to be the criteria that probably is most important to you. If you are, not as focused on cash flow, but you're looking to build equity, build wealth, have rents obviously cover expenses, but make more of your money in equity build over time, then return on investment is going to be a more important formula for you. So this is just a screenshot of our calculator on our website. You can go to Marshall Reddick, you can click on Learn, go to our education page, and then find our financial calculator. You can also go to the Invest tab, click on Properties, and every single property example is going to have a built-in calculator that has all the numbers already filled out. So we're going to show you a few different property examples right now. We got one property to show you in San Antonio. We're also going to go over a property in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida, and then we'll also show you one in our Clarksville, Tennessee market. So first and foremost, these graphs are all over our website. If you're looking at a property on our website, you're going to see the 20 to 25 year median home price history. This data, once again, is from the National Association of Realtors. This is not data that Marshall Reddick created. This is a graph and a chart that Marshall Reddick created, but the data comes from NAR. So in San Antonio, we can see the past 24 years or so of median home prices. And it should kind of just stand right out to you right away. And you should have just immediately looked at that graph and said, wow, there is no drop, and it's a very steady, stable increase over 25 years. What happened in 2008? What happened during the housing bubble? What happened during the Great Recession? In my opinion, it's absolutely fascinating what happened to a market like San Antonio during the Great Recession. Not every major metropolitan market in the country saw a significant 30 to 70% drop in 2009, 10, and 11. And this is one of those markets. So we consider San Antonio and that whole Central Texas, New Braunfels, to be one of the safest places in the country to invest, because we can see for 25 years straight, home prices have gone up at a very steady, stable rate, and there's never been a significant drop, even during the worst economic decline and recession that we've seen in 70-something years. So the median home price at the end of 2021 in San Antonio, Texas, was just shy of $300,000. Let's take a look at a very, very popular, very, very common investment that we have here at Marshall Reddick, which is new construction duplexes. Ashley and our agents can spend a lot more time explaining why this is such an amazing investment. But just as a quick summary, it's brand new. And each side of the duplex is built like a single family home. Mm-hmm. It's got a 2-car attached garage, which we don't see on a lot of multifamily properties. It also has close to 1,400, just shy of 1,400 square feet per side. So if you're a renter and Schertz is northeast San Antonio, it's a suburb in San Antonio. If you're a renter in San Antonio, you have a family, you're trying to rent a 3-bed, 2.5-bath property, you can look at this and say, wow, I can rent, one side of this duplex, 1,400 square foot property. For $1,750 a month. So the total gross rents are $3,700. So we see, is that $1,750? $1,850. Thank you. Okay. Get some numbers. Even better. Sorry for that horrible math performance just now. We're seeing $1,850 per side. The rents have gone up a lot. I mean, these were renting for like $1,650 in the fall of last year. So we've seen rents go up a lot in the last year. $1,850 per side. You can rent this duplex, one side of it, for $1,850, or you can go to a community down the street and rent a exact single family detached home for about $200 to $300 a month more. So renters love these properties because they're getting a single family home. It's an attached property, but it's got their 2-car garage. It's got stainless steel appliances, granite counters, ceiling fans in every room, no carpet, stained concrete flooring, but it has a private backyard with a private fence and that, garage, which can be a garage or a man cave or whatever you want. This has the feel of a single family home. So very popular with renters, very popular with our investors. Obviously being brand new, it comes with a builder warranty. What I want to show you is the pro forma there on the right. So if we're evaluating this property on 30% down, we update our interest rates as we get those updates from our conventional lender. We're looking at, roughly $300 or about $250 a month in positive cash flow without assuming rent increases. And then under it, it's very easily confused. I think it's very easily mistaken to look at that and say this is a negative cash flow property when it is not a negative cash flow property. What we're making you aware of is that you're eventually going to have maintenance and vacancy, and you'll be looking at paying leasing fees once there's tenant turnovers. But we look at this property and say, this is a value add. This is a property that has seen major appreciation in price and rent over time. And this is the type of property that attracts A-class tenants. This is just a screenshot of the return on investment section of the financial calculator. You can change the number of years held. You can look at exactly how much profit you would stand to make on a property based on how long you hold it. And then you can look at, some of the numbers for cap rates, return on investment, and cash on cash return. So Fort Myers, Florida is another market we're in, very similar to most of the metropolitan markets in the last 15 years. Saw that decline, has seen a significant turnaround since then. Median home prices in this market are about $360,000 as at the end of 2021. This is a market that we've seen extreme appreciation in value over time. What's nice is that we've seen these rents go up over time as well. And, there's enough diversity of employment, there's enough job demand that, we feel that this is a market that we're going to continue seeing that growth in over time. One of the very popular types of investments that we have in Cape Coral, in Fort Myers, is new construction homes. And there's a large demand from renters for new construction homes. I think that's just become something very, a trend after COVID. During COVID, we saw a lot of renters that preferred new homes. I think we've seen a significant decrease in inventory and the need for builders to continue building more property. These properties are anywhere from 3 to 2 bed, 3 bed, 2 bath to 4 bed, 2.5 bath. This is a 1,600 square foot home, new construction, and very popular type of property. The types of properties you see on our website, in most cases, they're not our listings and we don't own them. Because we're realtors, we have access to properties of all shapes and sizes. So we work with builders and we have some new construction property. We also work off of the multiple listing service, and you'll see some third-party listings on our website, which would be considered resale properties. We're constantly screening properties all over the market to figure out which ones make good investment properties. And like I said, 99% of the time, it's not a listing of ours. It's a third-party listing that we have found and that we are recommending and that we ultimately would love to manage. At the end of the day, we're only recommending properties that we would not just want to manage, but that we would love to manage. And almost every property that you see on our website or that is a suggestion is located on a street or a neighborhood that we already manage properties in. And that could be the case. We can go through our properties on our website and share with you the proximity of other properties we manage in that neighborhood. We know the zip codes, we know the neighborhoods, we know the communities. We know exactly where we're seeing tenants that stay longer, that have better quality, and the demographics that we're looking for with income, job stability, credit, and whatnot. So this isn't a guessing game. It's helpful, I think, that you have some reassurance in knowing that wherever you are buying a property with us, it's very likely located within a mile or less of one or many other properties that we manage. This is a property, because of the appreciation trend in Florida, that will see more appreciation and value over time. And again, we're not taking into account rent increases, but I definitely recommend that you guys use our website, evaluate some properties, and spend time on these calculators. Lastly, we're back to another very stable market and our highest affordability market, Clarksville, Tennessee, northern Tennessee. So Clarksville is our lowest price market. Average home prices at the end of last year, $216,000. Also a market that has zero volatility, a very safe market to invest in. And that's been extremely stable over the last 20, 25 years or so. So, Tennessee has very low, and specifically the markets we're in, Clarksville and Nashville, low property taxes, low insurance, high demand for rent. So we do see usually the ability to get a little bit more cash flow in this market. Obviously, if we're looking at, property classes, we have to be comparing apples to apples, but property like this is a resale property. This is not our listing. This is an example of the types of properties that we recommend. This is a 7-year-old, 3 bed, 2 bath, almost 1,400 square foot home. We do the rent evaluation before we put a property on our website as a suggestion. So Our evaluation on this property was about $1,700. Excuse me, I'll get back to that. $1,700 a month in rent. With the current taxes, insurance, management fees, we're seeing about $188 a month currently in cash flow. Obviously, we're going to see rent increases over time. But this is the standard, maybe kind of starter home for investors. $279,000, a very, 3-bed, 2-bath, not a huge home, but a home that's in, very high demand for a lot of the rental pool. The other thing about Marshall Reddick is you're only going to see 3 to 4 bed, 2 to 3 bath homes. You're not going to see a 5-bedroom home listed for sale on our website. Square footage, you're probably going to see about this number, maybe about 12 or 1,300 square feet, up to a max of maybe 2,500 square feet. Again, we're buying properties that open up the majority of the rental market. We're not buying niche properties that only a small amount of the rental market would be attracted to. We're also not selling properties that have more risk. So you don't see properties on our website that have a pool. You don't see properties that are, let's say, in areas that would have more threats to natural disasters. You don't see a lot of properties that are, let's say, more than maybe a quarter acre. So we're not really selling properties on farmlands that have livestock. It's very bread and butter, very, very similar types of properties. So just kind of winding down here in the last few minutes, I wanted to show you where our property management fees are located on our website. We do property management in-house in all of our markets. You can see our fees directly on our website. You can also speak to Ashley and our property management team in more detail if you have questions about property management. We like to say that in Marshall Reddick, we only make money when the landlord makes money, and we don't make money when the landlord loses money. So we don't charge any fees during vacancy, and most of our fee structure is tied to the collection of rents and the percentage, and a really partnership type of structure that we only win when you win, and we don't win when you don't win. Yes. So here's some of the things that Marshall Reddick does, and really we actually have a full separate presentation on our website. If you'd like to learn a lot more about our property management, there's a recorded webinar called How and Why to Use a Professional Property Manager on our website. And we go into extreme detail on our property management, but I just want to cover this for a second. We have very specific, very detailed screening requirements for renters. We have a very specific lease agreement with very specific language and very specific terms. We conduct move-in inspections, mid-lease inspections, move-out inspections. We use software so that our renters can log in and pay their rents. We have software so our landlords can log in and check the performance of their properties at any time. What's also great, kind of going into this whole one-stop shop approach, we have countless landlords that own properties in 2, 3, or as many as 4 of our markets. And they get to log into the same place to check their properties in all of our markets. They're getting their rents deposited in their bank account the same day of the month. And it's a highly efficient way to build a portfolio with one company that's in all these different locations. So coming down to the last couple minutes here, and thank you guys for sticking with us all the way to the end. We like to summarize and end our presentation with how to eliminate and how Marshall Reddick eliminates as much risk as possible in real estate investing. I'm not a big risk guy. I at least like to know what risks come along with whatever I'm doing and evaluating those risks. Marshall Reddick, because we have such a large system in place, we prefer to only focus on markets and properties that would have the lowest amount of risk and the highest return, no matter what investor we're working with. So how do we decrease vacancy? How do we decrease maintenance? How do we decrease the risks of property values going down or prepare ourselves for those risks? And how do we deal with natural disasters? Well, we've actually covered it throughout the presentation. If you want lower vacancy, then you want to be purchasing properties in higher property classes that come along with less inherent vacancy over time. If you want lower vacancy, then you want to be buying property within a major metropolitan market. When you buy in a city, could be a hour, 2 hours away, that has that 5,000, 10,000 population, you're going to experience higher vacancy. Major metropolitan markets have a much larger tenant pool, more potential renters for our properties. Having professional property management absolutely reduces vacancy. We take professional photos. We assign leasing agents that aggressively lease and show our properties. We do the proper amount of work before listing that property for rent. We average under 30 days on market for almost every single property that we lease at Marshall Reddick. That's not going to be 100% of the time, but we average at least a 95% rate of renting our properties in under 30 days from the date it is listed for rent. So moving down to maintenance, when we help you acquire a property as acting as your realtor, we're going to have you order a home inspection. We're going to see the age and condition of every single component of the property. We'll know whether it's a good idea to move forward or cancel on that property at that point. If we move forward towards closing escrow on that property, we have a report that's similar to a Carfax report for a car that tells us the age and condition of the roof, the furnace, the HVAC, the plumbing, the garage door, the appliances, all the major water heater, right? So all the major appliances, we're going to have a much better, very good understanding of when those would need to be replaced. So whether we move forward or cancel, we'll know when those things need to be updated. We'll be able to budget for those capital expenditures, and we'll be able to prepare our client for knowing that this property is or is not what they were expecting after that home inspection. Higher property classes, like I mentioned, have lower amounts of maintenance. Lower property classes have higher maintenance. If you're looking to reduce maintenance, then you want to be buying in higher property classes. And then obviously new construction or newer construction properties will have lower amounts of maintenance, at least within that first maybe 6-year period of time. And then as we get past 6 years, we're going to have to start budgeting for more maintenance until we do a significant remodel. If you're able to put at least 20 to 30% down on a property and ensure positive cash flow, as long as you're buying in these metropolitan markets and you're following all of our guidance, then these are going to be positive cash flow properties, and you'll be able to hold that property long enough for values to come back. Every single investor that bought properties with us in the last 10 years went through that during COVID, and they're going through it right now. We're seeing very small decreases in purchase prices in our markets right now. I don't have exact numbers, but I think we're still net positive from the beginning of the year. We saw significant increases in the first and second quarter. We've seen some decreases in the third quarter, still at a net gain. But during COVID and during now, we have a lot of clients that have high positive cash flow, and they're able to hold their properties indefinitely. And this cycle, or the cycle 2 years ago, or the cycle 15 years ago, didn't matter to them. Lastly, we stay away from markets that have a higher chance of natural disasters, whether that's hurricane or tornadoes. We stay away from those markets that are difficult to insure. And as long as you have enough liability coverage, which we go into, and we explain how much liability coverage you should have, then you're protected no matter what happens. Essentially, the perfect mix for asset protection is the marriage between property management and insurance. Property management is there to prevent all of the controlled, all the things that we can control from happening. Property management prevents these issues from occurring that we have control over. There we go. That's a better way to say it. And then insurance is there to be your parachute and pay out whatever happens if something was completely out of our control and unforeseen and unable for us to prevent. Exactly. So this is your team at Marshall Reddick. You have a real estate advisor. You have lenders, whether it's conventional or private financing. You have realtors in all of our markets that are representing you, not the other party. We recommend building inspectors, insurance agents, and of course we have property management. This is a team approach. This is a team process. You know, we're not just doing this off on our own and just hoping that everything works right. We've been doing this for decades, and we've helped tens of thousands of people through this process. We have clients that have as many as 30 to 40, even more than 40 units with us, and investors who've been working with us for 2 decades. And we have many people that are finding us for the very first time. So we look forward to helping each of you gain that knowledge, gain these resources. And we have a complete online university, completely free for everybody to utilize. It's marshareddick.com/learn. You might have already stumbled upon it. There's over 50 topics to choose from. We have hundreds of videos, articles, tutorials, ebooks, calculators, and we highly encourage anybody that comes in contact with Marshall Reddick to go on our website and browse through these topics and get as much of this free education as you possibly can. We know it's free, and I think some people can mistake that with value, but if you actually spend time going through this, you'll see that we are here to educate our investors to help them make wise decisions, not making money from education, but helping investors build their portfolio. And we make our money as a realtor, as a property manager, and as a lender, just like every other realtor, property manager, and lender out there. So finally, I'm going to bring it back to Ashley, and Ashley's going to be following up with each of you over email after our presentation to set up one-on-one consultations. We can do this when you guys are both available. Ashley does a lot of consultations, and I think she's pretty booked, at least for the next week, but we can have a consultation scheduled in the near future. Ashley, I'll let you kind of say your goodbyes, and I also want to thank everybody for being on our presentation.
Thank you, Scott. You guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It's amazing. I mean, even being in the heart of the company, I still get so excited whenever we do these. I'm like, that's what we're doing. So my hope is that you guys go away with some very valuable knowledge, and that you go away very, very excited for the potential, and understanding that even if your situation isn't like classic investor, that there are ways to make this dream a reality. So
yeah. And I think what's different here is that this is a no pressure relationship with our real estate advisors.
Yeah.
Our real estate advisors are here at your pace. You can ask Ashley as many or as little questions as you want. The phone calls can be as long or as short as you want. Ultimately, Ashley's going to ask you some questions to help guide you guys in the right direction, and add value, add tools, add knowledge along the way. Yeah. So you have Ashley's contact information. That's her direct phone number and email. Feel free to give her a call or shoot her an email. She's going to be, as we mentioned, sending all of you emails to see if you're available for scheduling a call. You can also go on marshareddick.com/consultation to fill out a very short consultation form. There's a few questions that might help. So feel free to get in touch with us anyway, or you can even wait for Ashley to reach out to you as well too.
And then we are not doing a live Q&A today. So if you have questions, you're welcome to email those over directly to me, or pop them in the chat box. They'll populate and be forwarded over to
and
myself. Thank
you for mentioning that. We didn't have enough time for Q&A, but take those questions, don't write it Ashley, and she'll be able to go through them more in a very gentle way, present them to Ashley in a very gentle manner. And we'll be able to help you guys, take next steps. So thank you all for being on our presentation. Thank you, Ashley, for doing what you do. You play a very valuable role at Marshall Reddick, and as do all of you. We're very happy to have you on the presentation, and we look forward to following up with you and having conversations individually. So thank you, everybody.
Have a great night.
Bye.